Hello snowboarders of the internet, I am your host TC and today I will be reviewing the Jones Project X. If you're interested in this board or any other boards or bindings I mentioned in this video, make sure you're going down in that description and clicking those affiliate links. That way you know you're getting the exact product you ordered. The Project X is equipped with Jones's directional rocker camber profile. So what that means is you're gonna have a large rocker section in the nose and then camber throughout the middle all the way to your back foot pretty much, and then a very small rocker section in the tail. So what that's gonna do for you is that camber zone. It's gonna give you all that stability, drive, and pop you're looking for. And that rocker section in the nose and that smaller one in the tail are gonna help with ease and entry in and out of turns. Also gonna help with float as well. And then you do have a small spoon in the nose and in the tail, and that's just gonna help with getting this thing up out of the snow and just keeping it above it so you're just floating out there. The Project X is offered in two sizes, a 156 and a 159. I rode this board at Copper Mountain where it was a very flat, light day. The sun tried to poke out and it pretty much just poked out enough to blind me with my low light lenses in, and then it just went away. But for the most part, the snow stayed really nice and firm all day where it wasn't super crusty, but it also wasn't super soft. It was just that perfect amount where you could lay an edge into it and really trust that it's gonna hold pretty much that hero snow. You could find some POW stashes out there, but they were very few and far between and you really had to work for them. But you know, it was enough to really get this thing in some fresh and really see how it performed. But I used my Ride Fuse boots and my Jones Mercury phase bindings. When we're talking overall flex on the Project X, it is coming in at about the middle of the road, but it has a directional flex to it. So because you do have this long rocker section in the nose, it makes the nose just feel slightly softer than the rest of the board. I really didn't notice the rocker in the tail too much, where it didn't soften up the board underneath the tail at all. It was mainly in the nose there. And I mean, there is a slight bit of core milling in between your feet here, so you can still foot steer this board without really having to throw a bunch of weight into it or a whole bunch of effort. And as we move on to the stability portion, this board is definitely on the reactive side where it doesn't have a bunch of wood in it. It's definitely got more of that carbon layout in there. So you're gonna feel stuff, but it's not crazy lively where everything's vibrating and you're just chattering out there. You just notice the different terrain that's underneath your feet. So that's why I'm calling it reactive as opposed to lively, because it still cuts down on vibrations, but you know exactly what you're going over when you're going over it. Since this board has a whole bunch of carbon in it and all those fancy materials, it does ollie pretty well. It's not gonna ollie over that lift shack or really anything like that, so don't expect to go to the moon on this board, but it definitely does have some ollie power to it where there is still a nice snap and it does get off the ground, but it's just not gonna be the craziest thing out there where, say, that Stratos behind me, it's definitely got a little bit more snap than this board does just because of the wood materials in it. But overall, it did feel very approachable when you're ollieing and when you're landing on it. And if you're going to spin this board, because of how light it is super easy to whip around. So on your first 360 or whatever spin you're doing, just keep that in mind. You might end up over rotating this thing on the first one just because, at least for me, I wasn't used to a board that is this light. So it just took me a little bit to recalibrate to it, but overall it does have a solid ollie to it, and it's got even better landing gear in my opinion, where you can set the edge even in unstable, uneven terrain, and you could still keep charging through with this thing. While I have you here, you might as well like, subscribe, click that bell, and turn on those notifications so you don't miss any of our scheduled programming. Since this board isn't the stiffest thing out there, it's pretty easy and pretty approachable when you're buttering on it. So when you're buttering on the nose, just keep in mind you have that huge rocker section to it, and you're pretty much, your sweet spot on this board is gonna be right at this Jones logo on the nose. So you don't have to throw a whole bunch of weight up to the nose there. You can just shift your hips, get them right in line with this logo, and you're gonna be just nose buttering this thing. As you get to the tail, since you do have a shorter rocker section, it becomes more of a balancing act, but it's really nothing too crazy where you're throwing weight, you're decambering this board or really flexing into it, and you just have a small surface area to work with. It's not really like that. You do have a little bit more of a butter zone on the tail as well than you would actually expect, at least than I expected, but still there's gonna be a good snap out on the tail. There is a slight pop out on the nose, but it's really all on how you actually approach that nose press. So just keep that in mind. Definitely not gonna be made for that buttering board out there. And I don't know who would wanna spend $1,600 or whatever it is on a butter board, but it still can butter. So don't just think because it's super expensive, it's not gonna be that butterable. You can definitely still do it on it, especially if you can get into some fresh snow. I highly recommend buttering on this nose. It's just really fun. It holds up really well. And because of that spoon, it's not as hard as you'd think it would be because you do have that extra surface area up there. When you just lay down this board on the edge, you'll realize why it has the high price tag it does. This thing can carve through any terrain. If you keep it on the smooth groomers, it carves like a dream. You can hit anything at any speed and you're gonna be totally happy. If you get it off those smooth groomers onto that variable snow condition or anything like that, it's still gonna hold its edge really well. Especially if you're like my size where you're right in the middle of the sweet spot for this board, it carves extremely well. I could definitely see if you're definitely on the bigger side of the weight range for this thing, that it might fold on you, but I had zero problems with it. I was actually really surprised with how well it carved because I daily the Stratos and I was like, this board carves extremely hard, but this board, really this Project X, it handles it really well. You don't have to put as much force in as you do with the Stratos, but you can just easy cruise carve this thing or really lay it down and carve super hard. It's really up to you, but I mean, this is where this board really excels. It was super fun, super agile edge to edge, especially on those short carves. And then when you just wanted to just lay down a giant Euro carve, it'll do it for you. It keeps its speed extremely well in the carves, especially because of this high-end base they put on it. This thing is absolutely money when it comes to carving. I know this section has gone a little longer than it normally does, but that should just go to tell you how well this board actually carves, just like pretty much every other Jones board out there. Rider in mind. This board is made for two riders out there. One being they bought this board as a status symbol because it's one of the most expensive boards on the market and they just pretty much know how to snowboard. They could totally ride it. They got zero problems on this thing. It's not gonna kick their ass, nothing like that. And the other rider is somebody who actually needs this board that wants to carve, wants to have this thing for those really good, just pretty much like POW days, I would say, that aren't crazy deep or anything like that that would warrant the hovercraft. But this thing is made for that person with definitely a little bit bigger of a bank account and pretty much somebody who wants to just have a nice ride that's not gonna kick their ass or pretty much just fold on them the first hard turn you make. If you're new here and are looking for another way to get involved in the Angry Snowboarder community, head on over to Angry Snowboarder VIP. What is it, you might ask? Sure, I could explain it here, but we have a great video over there getting into it really in depth. I now understand why Radio and Aspen sell so many of these things. You don't need to be a super skilled rider to get on this board and have a great time. You really can just pretty much buy your skills with this board for the most part, where it's like, yeah, I got a $1,600 board and I can make like 5 turns down the mountain. But this thing was super fun, especially I would say if you get this thing in a bank slalom, it's really gonna excel there, where it holds its edge well, it keeps its speed extremely well, and it's just nice and light where you don't have to muscle it around. So it is a great board for that. I mean, if I had it in my budget, this would definitely be in my quiver, but can't afford it. So, you know, I just got to ride the demo we're given and just enjoy it at these small moments. But overall, very fun board. I really liked it a lot. I totally understand why it's in the line. Just a great board, a little high of a price tag for me, but I mean, it's got all the tech you could ever want in it. And then some, where I'm surprised this thing doesn't have like a Bluetooth in it where you just know exactly where it is, or you press a button and it pretty much just rolls right up to you at the base of the mountain there. But overall, super solid board. I had a great time on it. If I could afford one, I'd own one, but I can't, so I don't. Comparable boards: the Capita Megalight, the Nitro Banker, and the Nidecker Megalight. Recommended bindings: the Jones Mercury, the Rome Katana Pro, and the Salomon Highlander. As always guys, I've been your host TC, and this has been my review of the Jones Project X. If this sounds like the board for you, but it's just a little bit out of your price range, I would highly recommend you check out one of those comparable boards, and I'm sure one of those will trip your trigger and fit your needs.